Welcome to our complete chapter-by-chapter breakdown of The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. In this series, we're not just summarizing the book, we're decoding it in the simplest way possible so anyone can understand how money really works in real life. Day by day, we'll cover every chapter with practical examples, real-life insights, and lessons you can actually apply. If you truly want to understand how wealth is built, how people lose money, and how behavior matters more than knowledge, stay with this series. Let's begin with the introduction of the psychology of money. All right, let's dive right in with the big question that Morgan Housel kicks off the entire book with. I mean, think about it. Why do some people seem to completely defy financial gravity? They earn less, but somehow they retire rich. And then you have others making huge incomes who end up crashing and burning. What's going on there? Now, your first guess might be that it's all about spreadsheets, right? Complex formulas, maybe some kind of financial wizardry, that building wealth is just a math problem you have to solve. But here's the thing. That's not it. Not at all. Okay, so if it's not math, it must be raw intelligence, right? A super high IQ, the kind of brain power that gets you into the best schools. Well, guess what? Nope, that's not the secret sauce either. So what is it then? It all boils down to one word: psychology. It's about how you behave with money. It's way less about what you know in your head and a whole lot more about the stories you tell yourself, your emotions, and what we might call soft skills. And to really hammer this point home, the book's introduction tells us two incredible, totally real-life stories that perfectly set the stage for everything that follows. First up, we've got a bit of a cautionary tale. This is the story of a guy who had literally every advantage you could possibly ask for. But, spoiler alert, he still managed to lose everything. So, picture this guy. He was brilliant, a certified genius. In his 20s, he designed and patented a key part that goes into pretty much every Wi-Fi router. He built companies, sold them. He had everything going for him. But here's the crazy part. His relationship with money, it was a total disaster. The author puts it perfectly. It was a mix of insecurity and childish stupidity. And nothing, and I mean nothing, shows this better than this one story. He and his friends would literally go down to the ocean and throw $1,000 gold coins into the sea, skipping them like they were just rocks. Can you even imagine that? I mean, when you hear about behavior like that, just complete and total disregard for money, all driven by ego, you gotta ask yourself, how long can that really last? Well, the answer, maybe not so surprisingly, was not long. All his intelligence, all his success, it was no match for his destructive behavior. He went completely broke. Okay, now let's do a complete 180. Let's talk about the janitor who quietly built a fortune. This is a guy who had none of the advantages of our tech genius, but his outcome, it absolutely stunned everyone. Meet Ronald Read. He was about as ordinary as you can imagine. He came from rural Vermont, was the first person in his family to even graduate high school, and he lived a super quiet, totally unassuming life. And his life was, well, incredibly simple. For over 40 years, he just worked regular jobs, fixing cars, sweeping floors. He lived in the same modest two-bedroom house his entire adult life. There was absolutely nothing flashy about this guy. But then, when he passed away at age 92, the world found out his secret. This humble janitor had quietly built a fortune of over, get this, $8 million. $8 million. Naturally, everyone was just floored. How on earth was that even possible? His secret was there was no secret. He just lived below his means, saved whatever little he could, and patiently invested that money in good, solid companies for a very, very long time. That's it. His incredible wealth didn't come from some brilliant move. It came from simple, positive behavior, just repeated over and over for decades. So when you put these two stories right next to each other, this incredibly powerful lesson just jumps out at you. And honestly, it's the core theme of the entire book. So on one hand, you have a Harvard-educated genius who was greedy and impatient, and he ended up bankrupt. On the other hand, you have a janitor with no financial training who was patient and consistent, and he ended up a multi-millionaire who gave it all away to charity. The difference wasn't smarts, it wasn't education, it was pure behavior. And this one quote from the book just nails it perfectly. Doing well with money has a little to do with how smart you are, and a lot to do with how you behave. It's not about what you know, it is all about what you do. And this is what Morgan Housel means when he talks about the psychology of money. It's not a hard science like physics with strict rules and laws. No, it's a soft skill, one that's full of emotion, nuance, and messy human behavior. Okay, so why should you care about any of this? How does thinking of money as a soft skill actually apply to your life and your bank account? Well, throughout this whole series, we're going to explore these key psychological ideas that really run the show when it comes to wealth. You're going to see that you don't need a PhD to get this stuff right. You'll see how your own behavior, your patience, your discipline, your perspective is a way more powerful tool than any fancy spreadsheet. And most importantly, we're going to see that ordinary people really can achieve extraordinary results, just like Ronald Read did. So our journey really begins with understanding our own unique money stories and biases. And that brings up a big question. What is the very first psychological trap that pretty much all of us fall into? We're going to tackle that in our next explainer as we dive into Chapter 1, titled No One's Crazy. Hope you'll join us for that.